Going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a few out there. It is the Earthmaster here on this Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. It's about 12 p.m., straight up noon here along the West Coast. And the latest earthquake on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 3.1 here around the Mediterranean area. That is indeed the latest quake listed on the globe. So what do we have going on here over the last 24 hours? Of course, we did have that pretty large, deep earthquake movement down here into the Fiji area last night. 6.6 earthquake striking here. Since then, we've seen a little bit of adjustment within the region here. Most of it around the Solomon Islands. We did have one further shallower earthquake up into the Tonga area. 4.6 212 kilometers deep. Notice that the difference there in the depth of the earthquakes. Still watching, though, potentially for some further larger scale movement upstream. We haven't really noticed any type of further movement into the New Zealand area following this deeper movement. I am kind of watching that. Looks like there was, though, maybe 3.7 being reported here. Around the North Island, New Zealand area. Let's see what's going on here across the GeoNet servers real quick. Stand by. So 2.4, one of the felt earthquakes here about an hour ago, but I'm trying to find that 3.7 that they're stating came up. There was a 4.2 a little bit further up along the Kermadec Trench. There is that 3.7. Looks like it's South Island, New Zealand area about an hour ago. Right on the plate boundary to be exact. Aside from that, doesn't look like we're seeing too much activity kicking up. The earthquake drums here across New Zealand will give us a better indicator of what's going on. Notice that pretty nice signature from last night. That's going to be the deep 6.6 in Fiji showing up all across the board here. But as far as local seismic activity goes, there's that three-pointer that I just mentioned there in South Island, New Zealand, showing up on quite a few stations here. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of elevated uptick currently taking place here across New Zealand. Checking out the volcanic drums as well. A slight uptick around the Taupo supervolcano. Noticing a little bit of localized seismic activity here across that volcano. But then again, nothing major blasting off there. Just some smaller quakes in the last few hours. All right, let's see what else we have across the region here. On the Earthquake 3D globe, it still looks pretty cluttered across this area. We are noticing a slight uptrend up towards the Mariana Trench. Some deeper movement quakes here occurring, including a 4.6, pretty recent earthquake. Ooh, the lights just flickered, not for sure why. 4.6 here a couple hours ago. Looks like 433 kilometers deep. This region normally will produce some deeper movement quakes and quickly follow up with some shallower earthquake activity upstream. So we'll watch this area for some further upstream shallower earthquake activity here along the Mariana Trench. Further to the west and southwest here around the Philippine Plate, or the Philippine Trench, excuse me. We also got some activity as well showing up on the globe, but not so much here on the map. So there is some activity kicking off here at the southern end of the Philippine Trench, which is this plate boundary. Sits on the eastern side here of the Philippines. And some 2s and 3s out here across the Java area today. But aside from that, looks like things may be calming down temporarily around this area for now. But definitely still seeing a pretty good cluster of movement and back building here across the area. But watch for some further shallower movement upstream into the Kermadec Trench and the Tonga areas. Up along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, of course, we did have some movement last night. Looks like it's been confined to last night. Nothing else showing up here today. Last one was a 5.6. Somewhat deep here into the northern end of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. 112 kilometers for that 5.6. The Alaska area. See what we got. Looks like mostly some smaller quake activity here today. Look at the 2.5 map and above. Shows a small section here along the Aleutian Trench with some low-grade 3s and even a 2.5 near the Women's Bay, Alaska area. The latest quake here on the map. Aside from that, mostly smaller microquakes across the region. Into the Pacific Northwest, very spotty activity. Of course, we do have that ongoing tremor event, the Cascadia tremor, which is this is yesterday's graph showing 581 epicenters of tremor. It is peaking out. We'll check out the graph here later tonight. They update it once a day, roughly around 6 or 7 o'clock. We'll see how this looks today. But either way, elevated tremor. Not seeing any noticeable uptick in earthquake activity, though, upstream or on the adjacent plates over here into the Pacific Plate area. But still kind of watching it. Northern California got 2.3, 22 kilometers deep upstream of the tremor. If you notice, we have been seeing a little bit of tremor here into the Northern California area as well, due east of where this two-pointer struck this morning. So tremor activity occurring down dip, adding further strain and stress upstream. Sometimes we see these earthquakes up here upstream from the deeper movement tremor. And that's kind of what took place here this morning. A 2.3, 22 kilometers deep tremor activity listed on the map occurs roughly between 35 and 45 kilometers here into the subduction zone of the Cascadia. So we'll check tonight and see how that, see if that's elevated once again. I'm pretty certain that it is. If anything, it may show a little bit more tremor down here in the Northern California compared to yesterday. All right, rest of California, pretty spotty. I don't even know if there's anything worth mentioning out here. No unusual quake activity, no major uptick in swarming or any type of activity for that matter outside of the Marietta area, 1.1. But that's it, 15 kilometers deep it looks like. Mostly smaller microquake activity there overnight and this morning so far. Yellowstone National Park, we got about 7 earthquakes listed up here on the map, so let's get into it and see what is being reported. I haven't even seen this yet. Oh, there it is. Roughly again around the center portion here of the Yellowstone supervolcano. I don't know why I had Long Valley on my mind there, but a little bit of activity kicking up here around Grant Village, Yellowstone. There's that earthquake activity. Little spitter spatter of some events. Looks like that taking place early this morning over a time frame of an hour or two. Pretty good handful of earthquakes. I would definitely say there's more than 7 earthquakes listed on that map, but they do have a 1.9 as the largest. That 1.9 occurring in that mix at 0947 UTC time. 0947 UTC time is going to be in here. It's going to be one of these earthquakes for a 1.9, but as you can see, there's definitely more than 7 earthquakes in that time period. But you can probably take that 7 and times it by probably 4. Got probably close to 30 earthquakes up here on this little time period. Over the last couple hours, though, looks like things are mellowing out. I'm not seeing any a major uptick. There is a little bit of earthquake activity, it looks like, around the eastern section here of the park. The signature in view is going to be this one. Doesn't look like they've shown that anywhere on the USGS map here over on the eastern side of the park, but there is a slight signature of something going on. Looks like some type of earthquake activity. Not big, but it is showing up here across a good portion of the eastern section of the park. And these earthquakes sometimes get unreported. And I've talked with the scientists there in charge there at Yellowstone, and they basically claim that there's not enough seismograph stations over here to correctly identify and pinpoint the exact location of said earthquakes here along the eastern section of the park. And it's kind of hard to get the correct information in there as far as where this earthquake struck, how deep it was, what the magnitude is. So that's kind of why I noticed these little odd readings here on the graphs. They show up on the eastern section of the park, and they just they don't ever get looked into all that much. Never gets reported here on the map. All right, moving on here. Texas, Oklahoma area. What do we got? All this activity from last night, looks like. Nothing kicking up there today so far. Eastern portion of the country clear as well. Let's see here. Pretty quiet here across the central portion of the, well, the southern portion, excuse me, of the Middle America Trench. We do have one earthquake from yesterday, a 4.5 off the coast of Costa Rica. But even looking at the earthquake 3D globe here today, it's fairly quiet, and the momentum and pressure looks as though it's shifted down south into the South America region with this cluster of earthquake activity, mostly in the 2 and 3 range. Not seeing anything major kicking up down here. Nothing being reported by the USGS, but that's due to the 4.5 threshold. But we do know there's some earthquake activity kicking up there today. Let's see what else we have. Hawaii, not a whole lot popping off there currently. Looks like some minor movement around Pahala and also the Kilauea volcano. Let's see if we got a daily update or at least a weekly update yet from the HVO folks there that monitor the activity. Yes, we do. Kilauea weekly update. Of course, we've had a little bit of swarming there in the past few days. Kind of curious to see what they're chatting about here. Kilauea volcano currently not erupting. It looks like the eruption ended on March 7th of this year. No longer looking at any lava flow. No significant changes have been observed at the summit or in either rift zones. Earthquake activity here, seismicity over the past week was at background levels with a slight increase in earthquake counts beneath the Kilauea summit. That's the earthquake swarm that we're talking about. 30 microquakes smaller than 2.0 detected over 12 hours at a depth of about 1 kilometer were centered underneath the crater area. Looks like there was some slight inflation that was associated with each of these swarms, this little earthquake activity underneath the summit tilt meter, which most of the time inflation's going to obviously be some magma movement underneath there. All other summit monitoring data streams over the past week remain normal. SO2 emissions from summit remain low. Let's see here. So it doesn't look like they're mentioning anything about, you know, they obviously they do mention the earthquake swarm and the slight inflation recorded on the tilt meter, but not what's causing it. But I think we can assume that it's some magma movement going on underneath the surface. So we'll continue to watch that there at the volcano on the Big Island, Kilauea volcano. There's still got a little bit of activity here kicking up. Looks like about 1 to 3 kilometers deep. That's down there where we could be seeing some magma on the move. Continue to watch that though and report back if anything major changes. Kilauea, very, very, very active volcano historically. All right, let's see what else is there. Not a whole lot going on across this area of the world. 4.3 in Greece from yesterday, and look at the EMSC model globe here. Looks like 3.4 coming in to the area. All right, Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet, clear. See what we've got for space weather, and then we'll look at some other items here. Well, still looks like a 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 45% chance, X flare around 10. A look at the structures of these sunspots to see what we have here today. Roughly about the same as what we seen last night. We do have numerous sunspots that are currently Earth directed and facing the Earth squared up perfectly, but none of these, and I'm not joking, none of these really pose any major solar flare threats. Even for a moderate flare, these look relatively stable in the cores themselves. Check out the UV filter here. Not a whole lot of flaring currently taking place at all anywhere across this area. More so on the southwestern limb of the sun, but this is rotating off the view here. It's going to be gone and out of sight, out of mind pretty soon, and we're left with, well, A couple newer sunspots here on the eastern limb. Not for sure what's on the super far side here of the sun, but can't really get a glimpse of anything. Looks like we're entering into a slight calming period, so to speak. Now, we are looking at a little bit of elevated conditions kicking up currently with the auroras. I don't believe this was forecasted today, but a 40% chance at the higher latitudes of seeing the auroras. Notice the KP index here on the geomagnetic field has been slightly elevated to about the 4 range, almost up there to the G1 storm category. But it looks as though, according to Kevin here on the Solar Ham site, an apparent weak CME passage was detected today. This was responsible for a geomagnetic enhancement to active levels, KP index of 4. Aurora sky watchers at higher latitudes should be alert once it is dark outside. So, weak CME from one of these flares from, I don't know when, maybe a couple days ago, I guess. This is the last, here's the last 7 days. We haven't really had any massive flares or any major CME, so this may have just been a very weak event. Nothing. Sometimes you get these weird events coming in, and it's like, wait a minute, where does this come from? What is causing this? But apparently, maybe it was a CME. We'll go with that. Yeah, but aside from that, the next couple days here looks fairly minimal. See if that plays out, right? Getting these odd events this year. Weather activity here. Someone was asking about the SO2 emissions there from that volcano that spewed up a whole bunch of ash over here around the Kamchatka area. And it's probably long gone by now, but I do want to check out here and see if we can find those SO2 SO2 emissions. Where's this all coming from? That's quite a bit of activity. I believe that's some of the remainder leftover stuff here from that volcano. Let's see. Either way, there's a lot floating around up here, it looks like. There is an upper level low pressure system here spinning that SO2 back towards the west. A couple days ago, I don't think it's going to show us a couple days ago here, but all the SO2 that was produced from that volcano had shifted up and north and around this area, and now it looks like it's starting to shift back due to all the different upper level patterns. But for the west coast, it looks pretty clear, just a little bit up in the upper atmosphere. All right, let's see. Let's check out the weather for today. Current day 1 outlook. Marginal risk for severe weather. Doesn't look like we're seeing anything for tornado potential, all less than 2%. Most of the threat today will just be some wind or maybe even some hail damage. But if you notice, it is in the area that needs much needed rainfall. We're talking about western Oklahoma, parts of northern Texas, western Kansas as well, and Nebraska. All these areas are underneath a pretty extreme drought. So any and all available precipitation modes would probably be appreciated this time of year. Tomorrow, a little bit different story. Looks as though a little bit more enhanced area for tornadoes, wind, and some hail. Again, centered over some much needed areas that are seeing some drought conditions out there. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. A look at the numerical models here. These are just weather forecasting models. I do want to bring up a precipitation, a total accumulated rate map. See what we got here over the next week or so, couple weeks. This is going to go out into, well, the first week of May, it looks like. May 4th to be exact. This is going to be total accumulated precipitation amounts out here. Notice, well, some of western Oklahoma getting in on a little bit of the rainfall, up around 5 inches or so potentially, maybe a little bit less. But there's no heavy-duty soakers, no drought busters that I'm seeing so far on the map. May can be a very wet month out here, so hopefully that will change for these folks, and they'll put a big damper on that drought. Most of the rainfall right now is shifting off towards the east, southeastern states, getting in on some pretty some decent rainfall. Looks like the west coast drying out here. In fact, I was looking at my weather models here, and we're supposed to be up in the mid, maybe upper 80s coming up here soon. Today a little colder, about 60 degrees here in Northern California. Tomorrow warming up slightly, but yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to some warmer weather. Not even joking. It's been a long, super long winter out here in the California area. See what we got here. What else is there? What else is there, folks? I think that's about it. Definitely watch these areas today around New Zealand, upstream here of the Mariana Trench. That deeper movement quake should trigger some surface earthquake activity here soon. It's almost, this area almost always follows that suit when there's deeper movement. Sometimes it's a few hours later, sometimes it's more than a few hours later, but it does trigger some shallower earthquake activity upstream. See if it's popped up yet. Not yet, but it will. 3.9 here into the Philippines region to south. There also 3.5 Java Trench area. All right, folks, have a good day. Stay safe out there. And we'll catch you guys back here sometime tonight. Have a good day.